We're halfway through the game, and we're going to fight the 9th Colossus very soon. First, I want to talk about the Shrine of Worship. If that seems boring to you, I'm going to put a little annotation right here, and you can just click on that and we'll move to fighting the Colossus. It's okay if you do that, I won't mind. Still, the Shrine of Worship is very interesting. We return there many times, and we've never really considered what that space means. In looking at that space, and the game as a whole, I find there's appeal to looking to what other people have said. In particular, there's a bit of writing by Ryu Sinclair and David Rodoy back in 2006 that uses Hebrew mythology as a very strong lens to interpret Shadow of the Colossus. You can actually find the entire game and plot analysis on GameFAQs.com. So, we need to correct ourselves for a moment. Back during the first video, I sort of spaced out and forgot that Dorman actually is Nimrod spelled backwards. But that begs a question then. Who the hell was Nimrod? Well, I actually got that wrong too. I said that Nimrod was someone who worshipped heretical gods. Actually, he was a king in charge of building the Tower of Babel. Now, I'm not going to really go into depth about that story, but according to that legend, everybody spoke a common language in the past, and then one day they started building a big-ass tower. God got really angry, came down and made it so that people spoke multiple languages. In some versions of that story, Nimrod is actually chopped into pieces and scattered about the land. Note the various beams of light from where we've killed other colossi. Dorman too has been sort of chopped up and scattered about the land. So that strong connection between Dorman and Nimrod, I think it's probably one of the best ways to look at the text, at least if we're looking through allegory. In that same way, that tower in the distance, our Shrine of Worship, becomes its own Tower of Babel. This all interests me because we also have a single unified language within the game. The fictional characters of this game, Wander, Dorman, and other people that we'll see, speak a language that we don't understand. To us, it sounds like gibberish. We only understand it because there are subtitles that tell us what they're saying. Without them, we wouldn't understand the dialogue at all. So considering the connection between Dorman and Nimrod, the symbolism of the Shrine of Worship as a sort of Tower of Babel, having Dorman tossed into the winds the same way Nimrod was, and thinking about the way language is, used in this game, I think that Sinclair and Rodoy were onto something using that lens. That's pretty much all I have to say about that. I had to pause for a moment. Now we're going to get back on aggro. We're going to fight our next Colossus, Bosman. The prefix Bos or Bosi can just mean at the bottom, basically, is what it means. Basis means step in Greek, and the phrase bieno, if I'm getting the pronunciation correctly, means I walk or I march, which makes sense considering the way that Bosman is this very lumbering, sort of deliberately paced colossus. Let's take one moment to stop and note the area that we're going to fight Bosman in. It's probably the most deliberately dark and blighted area of the map. When looking at it from a distance, it's actually a big dark cloud. It's full of geysers that erupt, and it's possibly the most hostile area that we'll ever encounter in the game space. This is sort of appropriate because Bosman is actually a real bitch to fight. I mean, like, either this playthrough right here that we're going to do is going to be really cool and the fight will be, kind of short, or it's going to be a pain in my ass. Either way, you're going to see something fun. Bosman is another environmental puzzle, but it's a very complicated one. It's going to involve these geysers, and it's also going to require us to use aggro in a very, very deliberate way, which we really haven't had before. We could ride aggro during the Quadratus and Phaedra fights, but we didn't need to use aggro. Here, Bosman can shoot magic lightning, and we can't really outrun it as Wander. So we need to use aggro to run away from it. Also note how crazy Bosman looks. As we move forward with some of these colossi, they get really foreign looking. They tend to take on very alien imagery. So as we get closer to images of magic and sort of strange otherworldliness, the colossi really become drastic in how they look. We have a strange progression when we fight the colossi. It goes from sort of human colossi to animals to magical beings, and then eventually we'll end up back at something a little bit more human. Now, you're going to see right here, this is what I'm talking about when I say that Bosman's a terrible fight. I have to make Bosman stand above one of these geysers. The problem is that it really tends to be almost polygon perfect. If you go just a little bit to the left or the right, it won't knock them over, and we need to make them fall on their side in order to climb on them at all. There's no other way for us to climb on top. So when we get close to geysers like this, all we can really do is move around in circles, make sure that he doesn't shoot any lightning at us, and then hope very strongly that it marches forward and into the geysers. Our connection here with aggro is indispensable. Moving fast, we can avoid the lightning, and we don't get, stomped on. Even though, you can see right here, it's still very difficult. This boss could take a little bit of time. It really is a matter of figuring out how to get Bosman to move a little further forward. So we're going to try and move to this edge here, and we'll just ride aggro and avoid lightning. Once Bosman has fallen on its side or gotten hit by one of the geysers, it's not as much of a problem. It's just that the detection of the geysers is a little tricky. But I think they might have fallen over. No, they didn't. I thought, while I'm fighting a Colossus, and I thought that they had done it. Bosman's a very crazy fight. I think we might actually have them in position now. If not, we just sort of have to wait until they do it. There's no other real tricks to this fight. I can't do any speed strats or anything else. The only way to get up onto Bosman is to have it fall due to the geyser. And you can see the geyser is basically hitting it right now, but still not doing anything. So now you're just left with me riding my horse and sort of going in circles so I don't get my ass blasted by lightning. We're going to try moving this way in order to goad them onto the geyser and turn and hopefully fall. In terms of design, I like the image that Bosman has. We've said it's otherworldly, but it's very intimidating. One of the most intimidating colossi that we've seen yet. Still, it's really, really hard to make this fight go in a very smooth fashion. We haven't had many problems in terms of falling off aggro or anything like that, but those geysers, I'm telling you, they're terrible. Right here, you see that the geyser has almost hit Bosman again, and yet still, it's not quite working. We need to make them move forward, and I'm running out of things to say. We'll have them turn and we'll sort of cross our fingers. Like I said, this could have been a really quick fight or it could have been a disaster. Right now I say that we're probably somewhere right between those two things. This seems like a good position, but they're still moving a little bit more to the side than I would like. So I'm going to try and make them turn this way. Really, you're at the mercy of the environment. With other bosses, you could at least sort of really take advantage of things. And here we've actually gotten hit by the lightning. But at the same time, Bosman's finally been knocked on his side. In order to make him fall all the way, we need to shoot its feet, like we did with Quadratus. That's fairly easy. The trick now is just making sure we get up Bosman without much trouble. We have to go around, and hopefully they're not so close to the edge of the arena that we can't. That would be really unfortunate. But I think we'll be okay. The only issue will come if we fall off Bosman. Imagine having to do that geyser gauntlet again. I don't want to have to do it, and I don't think you really want to watch it. So we're going to do our best not to, screw up here. It's a really neat fight, and the environment is very dramatic, but The mechanics of the fight, the rules of what's going on here, are very frustrating. I'm going to climb up to the side here, but Bosman has very little things that I can hold on to stably, so you would think that maybe I would want to let go right now, but if I do that, I'll probably fall off when they get onto their side like this. Bosman's mostly comprised of rock and other things, so I need to be very careful when it moves. I don't really have anything to hold on to. Once I'm up here, though, it's actually a fairly easy boss. I go back here, climb up to the base of where the spine would be, and just climb up to the head. The only real trouble was getting it to get on that damn geyser. I'd like to say that there's some sort of really neat thing going on with the image of a geyser or something like that, but really this is just a test of patience. And that was possibly the scariest thing that's ever happened. We almost just fell off. I swear to God, I almost just had a heart attack. So we're going to really cling to the head here and stab. You can see this is probably one of the craziest boss fights in the entire game. But with a stab to the head, we've finally taken care of Bosman. Good riddance, I say. I do like that boss fight, as I've said, because it really makes you rely on aggro for the first time. In the latter half of the game, there are going to be a couple of boss fights that stress the connection between Wander and aggro. You can't defeat some bosses unless you're on your horse. We haven't had this before, and it really lets the player bond with aggro as much as we see Wander bond with aggro. And it also makes aggro really useful just as sort of a gameplay thing. More and more spirits are being released, and through our understanding of Dorman as Nimrod, if we want to keep on looking through that lens, we might consider those souls really some sort of incarnation of Dorman. That's something we've sort of considered before, but really here they really truly feel like fragments. This is especially true once we really note that Dorman is a collective being. We've talked about this before, but it speaks with a feminine voice and a masculine voice. It's an entity of its own, certainly it's its own entity, but it seems to be comprised of many things. Perhaps Dorman is comprised of many sinners, or it's just, its own god, or many gods that were trapped in this land, that became one big entity. All of that is still sort of up to us to interpret. All I know is that I'm really glad that we got through that Colossus. So that was the start of the second half of the game. We talked about some cool symbols, we fought a really frustrating boss, and the next one I hope you'll enjoy a little bit better than this. I'll see you soon, be safe, and I'll catch you in the next section.